Okay, this is the picture from the alleged assassination attempt of Donald Trump near Butler, PA. You can see that they have the bullet that allegedly whizzed past Donald Trump's head. And that's an interesting choice of words in the context of the JFK assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald, the whole Oz thing as it related to that event and how that is potentially relating to a foreshadowed coming assassination of Donald Trump. I wonder if that's why the term whiz is associated with things like bullets going right past somebody. Was that placed into the English language to evoke this idea of the whiz and assassinations in a subtle, innocent, subconscious way? Something people wouldn't even think of. They just talk about things whizzing by somebody, and a lot of times it's talking about bullets. Anyways, this has taken on a whole new meaning now to me with the inclusion of the 11/22 stuff as it relates to this symbolic ritual surrounding Donald Trump. Wicked released on 11/22/24, the same day that Kendrick Lamar releases GNX, which would feature heavily at the Super Bowl halftime ritual, where the Gemini man is in attendance, the first time a sitting president had ever attended the Super Bowl. There's this Stargate ritual involving a portal at the beginning that ends with game over. Donald Trump is in the building and Kendrick Lamar is performing in the wake of the release of GNX, which is Grand National Experiment. Game over. The Gemini Man rips the flag in half. That's released on 11/22, the same day as Wicked, an updated version of The Wizard of Oz, the same day that John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. And on that same day, Gladiator 2 was released. And Gladiator 2 has that Roman plot that is relating to Caesar's Superdome, where the Super Bowl took place. And this idea of the new Rome, referred to by Elon Musk in the aftermath of Donald Trump's inauguration. Gladiator 2 involves a plot where twin emperors who are brothers are ruling Rome. And a conspiracy results in the twins falling. Okay, so you have the twin emperors that fall in the context of a Roman conspiracy. This idea of the Gemini Man falling twice, the attempted assassination, and then an actual assassination that succeeds, as that relates to the foreshadowing potentially embedded into Paradise, where they show this scene of the President of the United States being assassinated, struck in the same spot that Donald Trump was struck first, by an object that resembles a torch that someone later informed me is actually a drill bit, which makes sense in the context of the plot. But the librarian is the one who has that drill bit, and he strikes Donald Trump one time in the same spot that the ear is actually hit by a bullet in real life, and then a second strike kills James Marsden's character, who is playing the president in Paradise. And James Marsden played JFK in a film titled The Butler, right? And that's where this image took place, right near Butler, PA. This is Butler Farm. In the context of all of that, you have the fact that for Trump's 2024 campaign, the text message that you sent messages to was 88022. You have the 88 that Donald Trump has been associated with since his birth, essentially, as it relates to how he, as the Moonchild, will pull on the fabric of reality itself and alter our perception of time. as that relates to Project Stargate, AI, and the merger of consciousness with the internet. Biology becoming something new entirely, a quantum leap, a parallel reality. You see how all of those themes are related to the science fiction movies that encoded 88 into Donald Trump? And that's tied into the analemmas, of course, which is the sun and moon paths and what they make in the actual sky when you track them. Again, relating to time and the idea of Donald Trump eclipsing America in the Great American Eclipse through this process. But it's working in the realm of the mind as well. You have the 88, the 0, or the gate, the portal, and then you have the 22 referring to the 11/22 or the date that JFK was assassinated. So it all comes together here where a potential second assassination attempt that is successful in the context of 88 results in the portal where this entire ritual culminates in an event that will very literally be the eclipse of the United States of America. The metaphorical controlled demolition of the country itself via his two presidential terms that are those two planes flying into those two towers on September 11, 2001. It's the metaphorical controlled demolition of America itself. And you can see the whole thing in this text message. And again, it doesn't have to mean that he is actually assassinated for real this time in a second attempt. This could all be symbolic, and it would relate back to Q and JFK's grave being in that Q shape where it's symbolically Donald Trump is the last president of the United States of America, and he is assassinated as a character to achieve that end. And in that scenario, he doesn't actually get shot. It's the symbolic angle where his character is fully assassinated and is the last president. And going forward, everything is different. He has eclipsed America. He has pulled on the fabric of the reality itself, as that relates to the country, the minds that inhabit it, and the world in general. A very obvious text message number now, 88 Portal 22. And another way you could look at it is a gate in the terms of a Stargate. And we have that going on in the news right now. Signal gate, they are referring to it as. Think about the symbolic messaging there. There's this scandal where details of an attack were leaked, allegedly on accident, that is now being referred to as Signal Gate because Signal was the messaging program that they were using to exchange these messages that accidentally got leaked to a journalist. Signal Gate. They are signaling the gate through this ritual. And this is related to the Vances and what they are doing this coming weekend as that relates to the partial solar eclipse that will take place. But I'll get to that in a second. I wanted to note before I forgot that Dr. Oz, who was nominated to Donald Trump's cabinet, had his confirmation hearing scheduled for the day of the total lunar eclipse blood moon, March 14th, 2025. And his birthday just so happens to be June 11th, 1960, or 11/6/6/11. 6:11 p.m. is the time that that alleged assassination attempt took place. This photograph was taken by the same photographer who photographed George W. Bush on the morning of September 11, 2001 in that classroom. (11/6) is obviously also the date that Donald Trump was elected president for the second time. symbolically the second plane flying into the second tower, 11-6-6-11. Which obviously has the symbolic resonance to 9/11 and the whole ritual. So again, another quote-unquote coincidence where Dr. Oz, who just through his name alone has the association to the JFK assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald, later killed by Jack Ruby, the Wizard of Oz. And now he is directly tied in to the blood moon total lunar eclipse ritual that is infused into Donald Trump through his Senate confirmation hearing taking place on that day, after the total lunar eclipse blood moon actually eclipsed the United States of America in real life. Just weeks after a total lunar eclipse turned the sky blood red, there's already another celestial event that has people talking, a partial eclipse that will create a unique sunrise Saturday. Dubbed a double sunrise by Live Science and Forbes, the moon's silhouette will give the sun a crescent shape, and as it rises on March 29th, viewers will see what appear to be two separate horns emerging from the horizon. So in the context of this double sunrise eclipse on March 29th, Signal Gate is also released in the news in the days leading up to it. This is the path that the partial eclipse will take to the point where it's viewable, and you can see that Greenland is directly in the path and is kind of the center of this partial solar eclipse. This is Greenland's flag, giving you this idea of the moon and red, the blood moon total lunar eclipse, in other words. Probably a big reason why Greenland is so closely associated with Donald Trump, because it has this blood moon association that he is infused with and represents. Because, of course, if this is the first time you're hearing this, he was born under a total lunar eclipse on June 14th, 1946. Incidentally, Greenland Migration is the second film, the sequel, that is coming out to the original Greenland, which was released during 2020, I believe. And you have the familiar imagery that was sort of along the lines depicted in Megalopolis with these asteroid-looking objects coming into the atmosphere and a destroyed world depicted. Here it's the Eiffel Tower, which has a bunch of symbolic resonance of its own, but hopefully you can see the idea being seated in the mind here: Greenland, migration, and destruction. As that relates to what has been infused into the Moonchild, the Great American Eclipse, total lunar eclipse, blood moon, Greenland. Donald Trump wants to take over Greenland. And he is constantly messaging about it in the beginning of his second presidential term, most likely due to the fact that it's similar to the megalopolis imagery of the Statue of Liberty, with this same thing going on, evoking the idea of the destruction of the old world order as that relates to the United States of America and its future in the new world order that will be created in the aftermath of all of this. So, in the context of this partial solar eclipse that will involve a double sunrise, you have Usha Vance planning a trip to Greenland that causes a little bit of controversy. where Greenland's politicians have condemned plans for high-profile U.S. visits in the wake of President Donald Trump's threats to take over the island. Second Lady Usha Vance will make a cultural visit this week, and a separate trip is expected from Trump's national security advisor Mike Waltz. The outgoing Greenlandic prime minister described the plan as aggressive and said the duo had not been invited for meetings. Meanwhile, the island's likely next leader accused the U.S. of showing a lack of respect. This is really interesting because Usha is loosely translated to mean dawn. Think about what is being shown to you symbolically there. Usha is a girl's given name that originates from the sacred Indo-Aryan language Sanskrit. Usha is drawn from Ushas, the Hindu goddess of the dawn and the daughter of heaven. It means dawn in Sanskrit, a time of day that symbolizes renewal, rebirth, and all things life-affirming. Remember, this eclipse is going to be a double sunrise eclipse. Really getting at the idea of a new dawn, a unique dawn. Renewal, rebirth. Usha Vance, Dawn Vance, is going to Greenland for this partial solar eclipse. In the context of all of this Oz, JFK assassination symbolism involving Donald Trump potentially being assassinated for real this time. And what would happen if Donald Trump was allegedly assassinated in this way? Well, J.D. Vance would be president. So this is kind of a potential symbolic ritual where it's a new dawn in that way. Through the ritual where Donald Trump is JFK'd, for lack of a better term, J.D. Vance rises in this twin sunrise that would relate to the twin that is the personification of 9/11, the Gemini man, and his whole role in this symbolic ritual. Now, this could be taking place symbolically through his character being assassinated in the way that I'm constantly tempering our expectations here along these lines. But very literally, it could take place where this ritual involving Dawn, Greenland, and Vance is symbolically pointing towards the eventual resolution or culmination of the Great American Eclipse, where J.D. Vance becomes president. And Dawn Vance is the First Lady. And don't forget that Michelle Trachtenberg played the character Dawn Summers in the Buffy series. And her blood as that character was the key. A mystical energy with the power to unlock the gates between dimensions. Michelle Trachtenberg dies on 2/26, the same day as the World Trade Center bombing in 1993. She dies at 39 years old. Her character, Dawn Summers, is born on March 14th, 1986, 3/14, total lunar eclipse blood moon. The key that will have the power to unlock the gates between dimensions. So you have Dawn Summers, Dawn Vance, double sunrise, partial solar eclipse that will be related to Greenland, which has the blood moon eclipse imagery in its flag, and now has Dawn Vance visiting it when this eclipse will take place. And in the lead up, there is the signal gate. You see, the gate is opened, metaphorically speaking, by the mystical energy with the power to unlock it, which is the key, which is Dawn Summers. Dawn Vance, Greenland, partial solar eclipse, double sunrise, twin sunrise. It's all pointing back to this same ritual. At least it seems to be doing that, right? I can't say this is for certain. I'm just showing you what I found here, okay? This is speculation. And I could be making it all up. And actually, that's the perfect thing to say as I'm about to go into the next part of this, which involves the Bible. I don't know a lot about it. I probably didn't need to tell you that. I mean, I'm familiar culturally, and I've read parts of it. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I'm familiar with it and parts of it, but there's a lot of it that I don't understand to the point where I mispronounce words and people have to point that out to me. Like, Gesmini, which I'm still probably mispronouncing. As that related to the Golden Gate in Jerusalem, where I was pronouncing that word wrong the entire video. Anyway, this relates to Signal Gate and the Atlantic. So I'll just read this little part that I found, and you guys can fill me in on what I'm missing along these lines. The beast that comes up out of the sea is Satan's persecution of Christians, embodied in world governments and directed against the bodies of believers. In John's day, this was the Roman government. The beast that arises out of the earth is Satan's anti-Christian religion, which is aimed to deceive the minds and enslave the will of believers. At the time when these visions appeared to John, that beast out of the earth was incorporated in the pagan religion and emperor worship of Rome. And this is referring to the two beasts of Revelation 13. Obviously, the part that was interesting to me is the out of the sea connection, as that relates to Gate, Signal, and the Atlantic. In the context of the SpaceX Dragon ritual, where the pod, the device from contact consciousness, is dropped and it lands in the sea. In a gulf that the Atlantic Ocean feeds into, right? And those astronauts were up there for 9 months. It's this birthing ritual, this birth out of the sea, right? Where those human beings come out of the capsule as if they are coming out of the sea. Symbolically, it's this birthing gate ritual. This is the dragon's false government. Notice first that its location is rising out of the sea. The SpaceX capsule is called the Dragon, right? So you have all of this loose biblical association to that event that was all over the news in the aftermath of the total lunar eclipse blood moon, as that related to this birth of something coming out of the sea. And I just thought that was interesting in relationship to Signal Gate, now that's in the news leading up to this double sunrise, which will have the two horns. In the context of Dawn, visiting Greenland where the eclipse will take place. The beast comes out of the earth whose overall appearance is not described other than having two horns like a lamb and speaking like a dragon. His purpose is to promote the authority of the sea beast, with the ability to perform great signs, even making fire come down out of heaven. The two horns, the double sunrise, and dragon as it relates to a beast out of the sea or something rising out of the sea. Do you see what I'm saying there about how it seems like that whole SpaceX event was a ritual along these lines, where something was being birthed out of the sea, and it's now directly related to a double sunrise, two-horned partial solar eclipse, where Dawn Summers, Dawn Vance, the key is going to Greenland, and Signal Gate is in the news. There is the signal that the gate is opening along these lines, which is the 8822, the portal, altering consciousness, merging it with the internet, altering our perception of reality itself and our perception of time in that context, distorting our view of what is real. SpaceX 88, the Great American Eclipse, the whole thing is kind of evoking this idea of a birth in that context, which just makes sense. They are creating something new out of all of this. And I'm not saying one way or the other if you should take this biblical interpretation seriously, but of course it's a huge part of everything that we know and experience, so it seems likely to me that it would be included into these rituals as well. It's just something that I'm not familiar enough with to go into in great detail. But I did want to point it out because it's clearly here with Dragon, the Atlantic, gates, and this SpaceX ritual that took place. And that probably further relates to the ship crash that was all about so long, killing home, and the immaculate birth, right? With that 9/11 jet fuel imagery, the U.S. ship is destroyed by the so long. And the U.S. ship was operated by Crowley, who talked a lot about the beast in a similar way, and talked about birthing things through rituals in a similar way. And that's an important point, right? Any symbolism biblically that they would put into this stuff would be rooted in deception. It wouldn't be the real thing. It would be their version of that. Just a quick note before going forward. Vance and his wife appease Denmark with change to Greenland visit plans. This is really fascinating because now J.D. Vance is actually going to go with his wife to Greenland. He wasn't going to be there at first. And now, due to the perhaps scripted controversy surrounding this visit by Usha Vance, by Dawn Vance, J.D. Vance will now accompany her, and they are going to stay limited to the United States' space base that they have there, which is tying in the whole space Odyssey angle to this as well, and the SpaceX angle, as that relates to everything I just went into. So J.D. Vance and Usha Vance will be in Greenland for this partial solar eclipse that is the double sunrise, the two horns that will be seen in the sunrise sky. Which is potentially pointing towards 11/22, 88, and Signal Gate. Dawn Summers, Michelle Trachtenberg, Blood Spilled, the key. The energy with the power to unlock the gates between dimensions. Signal Gate. This is involving consciousness, you see. Unlocking the gates between dimensions, sending our mind into a different dimension, a different perception of reality. Which is what a ritual along these lines involving Trump and Vance would achieve, whether it's literal or symbolic. The playbook is signal gate, as Politico explains here. This ritual involving Donald Trump and everything they have infused into him is the twin of 9/11. The Millennium Hilton monolith overlooking the ritual controlled demolition of those two towers on September 11th, 2001, and the Trump monolith overlooking the United Nations. Meaning through this ritual, the quote-unquote new world order will be achieved. It will rise from the ashes. And as I was just going into, this is the screen of perception just as much as it's the screen that you are perceiving this video through. And as the Moonchild, like they depict those stargates with the watery substance, Donald Trump is pulling on the fabric of reality in this way. The screen that your eyes construct reality through, those black holes where light cannot escape the event horizon. And reality itself is created through that process. That is the screen that is being evolved through these monoliths. And indeed, it is merging with it. That's the ultimate ritual here. Oh, this was the mugshot for Lee Harvey Oswald when he was arrested in New Orleans right before the assassination. And I'm sure this has been pointed out many times by people who did deep dives into the JFK assassination, but it was just amusing to me that his actual number in the prison was 1122, and it also had a 237 in it as well. Speaking of the Overlook Hotel. And then there's this protester who ran onto the court at the French Open a few years ago with a t-shirt that said, "We have 1,028 days left." And it's just interesting that that 1,028 countdown ends on March 27th, 2025, right before this partial solar eclipse and everything else that I've just gone into. Remembering that 1028 has all of that 9/11 association to the last tower standing falling at 10:28 a.m. and Stargate being released on 10/28/1994 and Matthew Perry dying on 10/28/2023. I doubt there was anything literal to this, but symbolically it could very much relate to the signal gate, right? 1028. Gladiator 2, Caesar's Superdome, the twin emperors fall. The Gemini Man falls. Megalopolis, Caesar is shot in the eye. And then there is the quote-unquote Illuminati card game, where there's this image with "enough is enough" written on top of it. And at the bottom it says, "At any time, at any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day." You have this imagery of a bullet going through this character's face. And first, this is interesting because people have done the comparisons between the photo of Donald Trump raising his fist in the air after his alleged assassination attempt and this image from the card game, and it's very similar, the pose and mouth movements he's making, and enough is enough here. But I think this needs to be taken one step forward in terms of the potential foreshadowing for the second attempt that would be successful. Because enough is all over things that have been attributed to Donald Trump or involve him in some way. And a lot of this has been put out even after this alleged attempted assassination took place, including this story here, Enough is Enough. Greenland flatly rejects Trump's calls for annexation. And this is a tough one, of course, because the character Trump would evoke the phrase enough is enough from a lot of people because of the extreme nature of the actions they have attributed to him. This would be a common phrase you might see, but in this context, it's really interesting that enough is so frequently attributed to things involving Donald Trump. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with a video titled Enough is Enough from September 25th, after the alleged attempted assassination, that is relating to the health angle that he's approaching this from. But there you go, right? Kennedy, enough is enough as it relates to the president being shot, Oz and JFK, the whole thing, right? Enough is enough. An urgent art campaign to help vote Trump out. Enough is enough. America's toxic mix of mass shootings, disinformation, and Donald Trump. This is Hulk Hogan at the RNC, July 18th, 2024, just about 5 days after that attempted assassination. And he blatantly states the phrase, enough was enough, in this video.
Was enough! And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother!
Just absolutely ridiculous. But perfect, right? Because this really underscores the fact that there is no difference between what a character like this does and what a character like Donald Trump does. They are actors playing a role that is designed to get some kind of reaction out of you. The hero and the heels doing that dance. He says enough was enough and rips his shirt off with the Trump Vance, and obviously he was a part of the NWO and the Twin Towers and the Mega Powers going way back to the WWF. Oh, this is a Snoop Dogg music video, another ridiculous character. I can't believe how promoted he is. But anyway, the song is titled Lavender Nightfall Remix, Bad, Bad, Not Good. And in the video, you have this mock assassination of Donald Trump who's dressed up as a clown. Think about this. Bad, bad, not good. That's what an assassination of Trump would be. Lavender Nightfall. Moonchild. Remix. And lavender, it just so happens, is a genus of 47 known species, right? So Snoop Dogg has a video essentially titled with 47 that shows the president being shot. And you could say this was the Butler, PA incident, but I don't know. This could be foreshadowing the 47th president being assassinated, as opposed to that event that took place during the campaign. Enough is enough. SCOTUS slapped down these delusional judges and let Trump get to work. Donald Trump for president, December 9th, 2024, enough is enough. I believe this is from his official Facebook page. Enough is enough, Palestinian minister's message to Donald Trump. Enough is enough, Trump 2016. This is official campaign material, I believe. Enough is enough. It's time to impeach Donald Trump. That's kind of what I mean. Pretty innocent to say this kind of thing when you're talking about impeaching a president. But knowing how this symbolic narrative functions, the fact that this is out there and it already has a match, as it were, to the attempted assassination, we're in the territory of potential symbolic foreshadowing being intentionally placed into the media here. To the point where I just wanted to mention it. But getting back to the double sunrise dawn eclipse that is taking place on March 29th, the last thing I wanted to mention here is the very important fact that J.D. Vance was born as James Donald Bowman. Okay. You have that image of Uncle Sam from the Super Bowl ritual in the Caesars Superdome with the Gemini Man in attendance and the Gemini Man performing GNX, Game Over. Samuel L. Jackson comes out with a bow tie and stars on it with 8 stars on either side of his jacket for the 88. Uncle Sam is 88 the Bowman in the context of Game Over, and J.D. Vance is born James Donald Bowman, right? So you have Donald Bowman, McDonald's. Those 2 golden arches. That is the signal gate, the Golden Gate. The device that is the Club World Cup trophy opened in the Oval Office with the golden key, sending consciousness itself through the device, through this propaganda. James Donald Bowman. Arrowway goes through the device. So really, you might be able to view this as J.D. Vance, born James Donald Bowman, emerging out of the gate. That would be this symbolic or literal assassination of Donald Trump. And that could be as innocent as J.D. Vance is the next president, following Donald Trump's second term, and they symbolically assassinate Trump's character as the last president. But it also could be the literal angle here. In any event, very clearly intentional that James Donald Bowman is the vice president, and James Donald Bowman will be with Usha Dawn Bowman for this partial solar eclipse on the heels of the blood moon total lunar eclipse of America and the ritual that surrounded that, the birth ritual involving SpaceX and those astronauts and being birthed out of the sea, emerging from that gate, from the portal that is the device, drop through in contact, making contact in that way. James Donald Bowman going with his wife, Usha Dawn, to Greenland for this eclipse, as symbolically it's the key to opening the gate, signal gate, in the news at the exact same time that all of this will take place. It's exactly what's depicted here, right? James Donald Bowman. Bowman goes through the monolith and becomes the moon child. This is the result of this ritual. It's one thing. Donald Trump is the personification of 9/11 and the 2001: A Space Odyssey ritual. But you can see how you can sort of artificially delineate it in that way. Set some kind of arbitrary cutoff in the time stream that is fluid, but when you zoom in on one part of it, you can sort of do that. And that's it. Later.